Okay, so welcome back. We're at the final stage of today's manicure demonstration. I have massaged the other arm already, so you would have just repeated what I showed you on the first arm on the second. I'm now going to degrease the nail plates again, just to ensure that there's no product left. It's recommended that you use lint-free wipes so that you don't end up with little shards of cotton wool on your nail. I'm just going to give them a quick once over to check with an orange wood stick to make sure that everything has been removed. If there's any little filing bits that you missed when you were beveling, you can take those off now as well. And what you want to try and avoid doing is touching the nail bed with your hands, especially if your hands are greasy still from the massage. A hoof stick, you can do this with a hoof stick as well. Hoof sticks are plastic, so the cotton wool doesn't stick to them. As long as you're making sure you've removed it all, you should be fine. Perfect, I'm good to go. So, when you polish nails, you should always use a base coat. The base coat stops your nail beds from being stained and will make your polish last longer, so helps with longevity and allows for your top layer, your polish layer, to stay in place. Top tip, ask your client what colour she wants before you start massaging so that you can have your bottles open ready. I'm just going to undo them all. Loosen them off just a touch so that my sticky, greasy hands from the massage don't stop me getting these. There we go, all done. Okay, so we're going to polish what we call a multi-layer. A multi-layer is a base coat, 2 layers of polish and then a top coat. This is an OPI base coat. It's a really good polish brand to use. Their products are nice, the consistency is good, and the application goes on well. So I'm going to load my brush up. Can you pop that one to one side for me? And I'm going to take my client's hand in my hand. I hold my bottle in my 2 fingers and my little finger comes out, which is my pivot point. So I always apply my polish in either 3 or 5 strokes, depending on the size of the client's nail bed. So it's 1 down the middle, 2, 3. You can see that. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Sometimes you might need an extra one if you've put a little bit too much polish on the brush, which I had that time. 1, 2, 3. Then I'm going to ask her to pop that one to one side, not to touch anything because I don't want any fluff from the towel or a jumper or a clothing or anything like that to get into the polish because it will affect the finish. I'm going to repeat on the other hand. 1, 2, 3. 2, 3. If you feel like there's a bit of fluff in your polish, make sure you get it out. You want the finish to be smooth. There it is. Got it. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, by the time I get back to the first hand, by the time I've finished here, that can go to one side. The first hand should be dry, which it is. So I'm going to hold my brush the same way, my bottle the same way. Hold on to her hand, ask her to relax, give myself a pivot point to give me balance. 1, 2, 3. If you can master painting with red, you'll be able to paint with anything. 1, 2, 3. This is my first coat, so don't worry too much if you have any imperfections, because you can go back on your second coat and just make them exact. If you have any little areas where you go over, just tidy them up while you're working. 1, 2. Problem there was too much polish on the brush, so it dripped. 2. 3. I want to tidy up that because it's just gone onto a cuticle a tiny bit. It happens. There we go. Tidied it up with a hue stick, dipped into the top pump of my bottle, my polish remover. One. Thumbnails quite often need more. 2. 3. Okay. You don't want to be playing around too much with the polish, because that's when it will go gloopy and it will be ever so hard to correct. So if you've got a few imperfections in your first coat, don't worry about it. You can go back and correct them afterwards. Okay, pop that one to one side for me. I'm going to start this hand with the French to show you while the top coat on that one is going off. So this has got my base coat. With a French, I always recommend that you shake the bottle case any of the little filaments in the colour have dropped to the bottom. Now with a French polish, you want to be working side to side, side to centre, rather than trying to put your French on flat. The reason for that is you won't ever get your line as crisp as you want it, and going side to centre will mean that it's sharper, so the finish of your French will be nicer. So again, I'm going to give myself a pivot point. I'm going to hold the brush, I'm going to take it across the side, and then I'm going to bring it back across the other side, and that's it. If you can get it in one go, even better. Don't forget to tidy up. Quite challenging when you've got a client with short nails, but it's still doable. And lastly, the thumb. And allow them to go off. I'm going to come back to my red hand, put that to one side for me. And I'm going to pop my second coat in. Avoid touching the cuticle walls, your side walls on the base of the cuticle, so that you don't get any flooding where possible. That's 2 coats. So I'm now going to go and put my second coat on my French. And this is where you can even everything up. Even up the depth of the French, the lines, the shape. Okay, they're all in. So now I'm going to apply my top coat. And because I'm doing red, I'm going to clean my brush in between because it's got red on it, so that it doesn't go into my French. When you polish with red, you should always clean your brush in between before putting it back in your bottle anyway. And then I'm just going to have a little tidy around just to make sure I'm happy. Any areas that I've got any polish on, just touch up. If we had some drying spray, you could put some drying spray on now. The layers of polish will only be dry on the surface though with that. The drying spray doesn't dry the polish all the way through the layers. That's why it's important when you're polishing to make sure that if it's a manicure, your client has obviously been into their handbag and got anything they need out, car keys, purse, whatever they need, sunglasses before the treatment. And if it's a pedicure, make sure that they've got their flip-flops so that they can put their feet straight back into their flip-flops. They've not got to worry about shoes or boots. Pedicures aren't quite as good in the summer for that reason. We would recommend a gel polish. So gel polish is always dry when you leave the salon, it's cured, but that is how you would do a manicure with a red and a French polish.